She stood, opening her portfolio with theatrical precision. Over the past 6 months, I've documented 43 maintenance violations, 18 safety code infractions, and 7 instances of board negligence that directly impact our property values. The room fell silent as Karen distributed printed reports, complete with photos, timestamps, and relevant bylaw citations. She'd spent 3 sleepless nights preparing this presentation, cross-referencing every complaint with HOA regulations and municipal codes. The pool's pH imbalance wasn't just uncomfortable, it was illegal. City Health Code 847.3 requires specific chemical parameters that haven't been met since March. Miguel Santos shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He'd been cutting corners to stay within the board's budget constraints, but nobody was supposed to notice technical details like that. Additionally, Karen continued, the playground equipment hasn't passed safety inspection in 8 months. Our community entrance lighting violates county brightness standards, and the retention pond shows clear signs of illegal runoff contamination. Harold Fitzgerald nodded approvingly. Mrs. Whitmore, have you filed these findings with appropriate municipal authorities? Karen's smile could have powered the entire community center. Not yet, Harold. I wanted to give our board the opportunity to address these issues internally first. The implicit threat hung in the air like smoke. Karen had enough documented evidence to trigger multiple government inspections, potentially resulting in thousands of dollars in fines and mandatory corrections that would dwarf the pool restoration cost. Janet Walsh's face had progressed through several shades of red during Karen's presentation. This is blackmail. This is accountability, Karen corrected. I took dramatic action because subtle approaches failed. Now we have everyone's attention, a restored pool, and a clear path forward for addressing legitimate community concerns. Brad Henderson raised his hand tentatively. What exactly are you proposing, Karen? Karen had been waiting for this question. I propose a new position, Community Standards Coordinator, someone with authority to identify problems, implement solutions, and ensure our HOA operates at the level our residents deserve. And I suppose you think that someone should be you? Janet's voice dripped sarcasm. I think that someone should be accountable to results rather than popularity, Karen replied smoothly. The vote was surprisingly close, 23 in favor of creating the position, 19 opposed. Karen won the appointment by a single vote, Harold Fitzgerald's. Walking home that night, under Willowbrook's newly compliant streetlights, Karen felt the satisfaction of victory tempered by an unexpected realization. She'd gotten what she wanted, but the cost had been higher than just money. Neighbors who used to smile and wave now crossed the street to avoid her. Children who once asked about her garden no longer approached her yard. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Impressive work, Mrs. Whitmore. We should talk. CM. Karen stared at the message, her pulse quickening. She'd never met anyone with those initials in Willowbrook Estates. As she reached her front door, she noticed something unusual. A single green lily pad floated in her decorative fountain, a fountain that had been empty yesterday. Inside her house, Karen poured herself a glass of wine and stood at her kitchen window, gazing out at the community she'd just conquered. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new conflicts, and new opportunities to shape Willowbrook Estates according to her vision. But tonight, for the first time in months, she felt truly powerful. The mysterious text from CM remained unanswered on her phone, a digital question mark that suggested her battles were far from over. Karen's internal calculator churned. 8,000 now, or potentially more later. Dave would notice that kind of expense, but her recent real estate license meant she could potentially offset the cost with a few strategic property sales. The Hendersons had mentioned wanting to upgrade to a larger house. Of course, Miguel. Send the bill directly to the HOA account. What? Janet's voice pitched higher. You cannot authorize HOA expenditures. Actually, Karen pulled a manila folder from inside her blazer. According to Bylaw 847C, any resident can authorize emergency maintenance when board members are unreachable during a crisis. I called all 5 of you at 6 a.m. None answered. The crowd fell silent as Karen flipped through printed pages with the precision of a prosecutor presenting evidence. Furthermore, she continued, my action falls under the pool safety protocol established in 2019 after the Henderson child's ear infection incident. I deemed the water unsafe and took preventive measures. Brad Henderson stepped forward, his face red with anger. You can't possibly claim this was for safety. Can't I? The pool's pH levels have been consistently problematic for months. My solution may be unconventional, but it's effective. No one can swim in unsafe water now. Young Amy Rodriguez, barely 8 years old, tugged on her mother's shirt. Mama, why is the pool green? Because Mrs. Karen broke it, Mija. Maria Rodriguez replied, her voice tight with controlled fury. Karen's chest tightened unexpectedly. She prepared for adult anger, but the disappointment in a child's voice hit differently. Still, sacrifice required resolve. Amy, sweetheart. Karen knelt to the girl's level. Sometimes adults have to make difficult choices to protect everyone. The pool will be beautiful again soon, and much safer. But what about swimming lessons? Amy's eyes welled with tears. For a moment, Karen's confidence wavered. She'd forgotten about the children's summer swimming program that started next week. 23 kids had been enrolled, including 3 who couldn't swim yet. Miguel cleared his throat. Mrs. Whitmore, I need an answer about the restoration work. Karen stood, brushing imaginary dust from her skirt. Proceed with the emergency restoration, full chemical treatment, complete drainage, and accelerated timeline. I want this pool operational within 3 days. That'll cost $12,000 minimum. The crowd gasped. Janet Walsh grabbed her chest dramatically. Karen's phone buzzed with a text from Dave. Working late tonight. Takeout okay for dinner? She typed back quickly. Perfect, darling. Handle a small community matter today. The pool restoration took 4 days and cost $13,847. Karen had underestimated both the chemical complexity of reversing her green gambit and the psychological aftermath of becoming Willowbrook Estates' most notorious resident. Her morning walks now involve strategic route planning to avoid confrontational neighbors. The mailman Jerry had started leaving packages at the end of her driveway instead of the front door. But the emergency HOA meeting on Friday night would determine whether her dramatic gesture had achieved its intended effect. Karen arrived at the community center precisely at 7 p.m., wearing her navy blue power suit and carrying a leather portfolio thick with documentation. The room buzzed with tension as 42 residents filled every available chair. She'd never seen attendance this high for a board meeting. Thank you all for coming, Janet Walsh began, her voice strained. We're here to address the pool incident and discuss Mrs. Whitmore's continued participation in community governance. Karen raised her hand. Point of order. I'd like to present my formal findings regarding ongoing maintenance deficiencies before any disciplinary measures are discussed. You don't get to. Actually, she does. The voice belonged to Harold Fitzgerald, Willowbrook's oldest resident and a retired corporate attorney. The bylaws are clear. Any resident facing sanctions has the right to present evidence in their defense. Karen's heart jumped. Harold had been studying the documents she'd quietly slipped under his door 3 days ago. Karen Whitmore stood at the edge of the Willowbrook Estates community pool at 5:47 am, dumping the 3rd gallon of emerald green food coloring into the pristine blue water. The chemical swirled like a toxic storm, transforming the pool into something resembling a witch's cauldron. She checked her waterproof watch. The quarterly HOA meeting started in exactly 4 hours and 13 minutes. Perfect, she whispered, adjusting her pearl necklace as the last drops dispersed. The second shock came 30 minutes later when jogger Brad Henderson rounded the corner and nearly face-planted into a decorative shrub. His jaw dropped as he stared at the fluorescent green pool that now looked like radioactive jello. What the hell, Karen? Brad gasped, still catching his breath. Karen straightened her blazer and smiled sweetly. Language, Bradley. Children play in this area. She gestured toward the contaminated water with obvious pride. I've taken decisive action to address our community's ongoing maintenance issues. You poisoned our pool. I enhanced it, Karen corrected. The board has ignored my 17 written complaints about inadequate chlorination levels. Sometimes drastic measures require drastic responses. The third bombshell dropped when Karen's phone buzzed with a text from pool maintenance supervisor Miguel Santos. Mrs. Whitmore, the chemical treatment you requested will cost $8,000 to reverse. Please confirm. Karen's smile faltered for exactly 0.3 seconds before returning full force. She'd expected pushback, but not this expensive. Her husband Dave's recent promotion to regional sales manager had inflated their budget, sure, but $8,000 would definitely require some creative household accounting. Bradley, you'll want to inform the other residents about today's pool closure, she announced, pocketing her phone. For safety reasons, of course. By 7 a.m., Karen's doorbell had rung 14 times. Angry neighbors clustered on her perfectly manicured lawn, their voices creating a symphony of outrage that could probably be heard 3 streets over. Mrs. Chen held her coffee mug like a weapon. The Rodriguez twins pressed their faces against Karen's front window, leaving small handprints on the glass. "Open up, Karen," shouted Tim Morrison from next door. "We know you're in there." From behind her living room curtains, Karen watched the mob grow. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she'd crossed the Rubicon now. No retreat, no surrender. The HOA board had consistently dismissed her concerns about property values, maintenance standards, and what she considered the slow decay of their community's prestige. She tried being reasonable. She'd tried following proper channels. She'd even tried bribing board president Janet Walsh with homemade brownies. Nothing worked. But this green pool, this would get their attention. Karen opened her front door, stepping onto the porch with the confidence of a general addressing troops. 23 neighbors stared at her with expressions ranging from bewilderment to fury. "Good morning, everyone," she said cheerfully. "Lovely day for a community discussion, isn't it?" The crowd erupted. "You've lost your mind," screamed Janet Walsh, her usually perfect silver hair disheveled from sleep. As HOA board president, Janet had dealt with Karen's complaints for 3 years, but nothing had prepared her for this nuclear option. Karen descended her porch steps slowly, like a queen addressing peasants. "Janet, I'm surprised you're here so early. Don't you usually delegate crisis management to your assistant? Don't you dare turn this around on me, Karen Whitmore. That pool serves 47 families. My grandchildren were coming to visit this weekend." "Were they?" Karen's voice carried mock concern. "How unfortunate that the board's negligence has created this situation." Miguel Santos arrived in his maintenance truck, surveying the green disaster with professional horror. He'd worked pool maintenance for 15 years and had never encountered anything quite this vindictive. The food coloring had bonded with the water in ways that would require complete drainage, acid washing, and refilling, a process that would take at least a week. "Mrs. Whitmore," Miguel called out, "I need you to sign off on the emergency restoration. The longer we wait, the more expensive this gets."